be carrying on with the show. And a day ago, actually, the Member of Parliament, Honorable Imraan Subrathie, raised alarm on Islamophobia in Parliament and called for religious freedom in South Africa. And we are actually live with the Honorable Imraan Subrathie. Um, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Honorable Subrathie, welcome to the show. Okay, seems like we're still facing some technical issues, inshallah. So while our technician is getting a hold of Honorable Subrathie, inshallah ta'ala, I'll just give a few points. So this is based on one of the incidences that took place a few weeks ago, where it was Honorable Subrathie, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Mola Yunus. I hope you're keeping well. Jazakallah, thank you for having me on your show. I'm not too sure, am I audible enough? I didn't carry my earpiece, and
Yeah,
so I
you are
might be challenged this afternoon.
audible. Jazakallah khair. And on your side, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. I can hear
All right,
you.
Jazakumullah khair. Honorable, you delivered a powerful statement in the House yesterday regarding the issue of Islamophobia. And what was, obviously, for those who don't know, what was the specific tipping point or recent events that made you feel that this could no longer wait for a general debate and needed an urgent members' statement on it, inshallah?
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman. Thank you, firstly, for having me on the show, and I hope I'm audible enough to you. I think maybe what's important to understand, and maybe a lot of our ummah is not aware, that March 15th was the international day, was declared as the international day to combat Islamophobia. It was declared. It was a declaration that was done in 2022 by the United Nations General Assembly, and what concerned me is that this was never amplified in the media. No radio stations had a program around Islamophobia. I did see a statement by SEMNET, South African Muslim Network, but it never gained traction. And then that tells us that as a country, we have becoming accepting of Islamophobic incidents that are taking place. And if we don't respond to it, then we will start to normalize it. It's been taking place in pockets. And when you start to put it all together, and you see it start taking it so at successive times so rapidly, and that tells you that when you talk about it, when you don't talk about it, then you start to allow it to normalize. And when one look at the series of incidents that took place, it was really unacceptable, unacceptable. Particularly, it started off in social media. It started off, I mean, in Durban, I got lots of calls and messages coming in. Imran, you're seeing this Facebook post that's coming in with pictures of the masjid, and then pictures of the masjid, the most awful and disgusting comments put in there. And comments, I mean, in my statement, I referred to what the guy would have said on that statement. He mentioned things like for example, he says describes the mosque as a filthy place. And then he says where grown-up men put their foreheads on a dirty floor. And then he translates the Muslim prayer to I bear witness there is no one noisier than Allah. And he says, Ma'azallah, I bear witness Muhammad is the father of noise pollution. Such insane and ludicrous comments being made online, and we are silent. And I heard some people saying, no, just let it go. Don't talk about it. Just let it go. It doesn't go away. You are normalizing Islamophobia in the country by not calling it out. And I mean, we went on to, and when I saw this one where he actually describes, and there were several such posts, he targeted a whole lot of masajid in Durban, and each post had a different abhorrent comments. I mean, he goes on to actually likening and equating the prostration of salah to a sexual posture. And it was too disgusting to mention in the house, and I would dare not do it on your platform either. So that was the one incident. And there was another incident, and that happened in February, and that came to me. And alhamdulillah, I sit in the portfolio committee of communications, and that talks directly to the areas that I have oversight on. And I did escalate it. I did escalate it to the respective entities where I felt the set. And I was told yesterday by the person who brought it to my attention that on the 6th of February, it was actually removed when it was taken off site. So, alhamdulillah, it would appear that our interventions would have helped. But then it got even worse. Then, before, in beginning of Ramadan, I saw that ghastly video made out of a masjid, made out in the front of a masjid. I think it was in North Cliff, is the area, where the guy is standing outside and he says, I was inside the mosque. And what does he refers it to? He refers it to as the inside the mosque feels like enemy territory. And why are you trying to breed? You call it in, and he goes on to describe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Mazallah, he says, Allah is a demon and Prophet Muhammad as one possessed by demon. Now, how can we, in our right senses of mind, just let this go? And these have been adding up and adding up. And I think obviously then the ultimate for me was in Zanin when I heard of the chemical bombs. I mean, not chemical bombs, the acid bombs that were thrown. And there were various other incidents that's taking place online on the virtual platform where there's badgering taking place. But a lot of it is overseas. But when it becomes localized, when it becomes a South African problem being carried out by South Africans, not foreigners in our country, but South Africans. And then in Limpopo, acid bombs on the first Friday after Tarawih Salah, acid bombs, in other words, acid and chemicals in a bottle were thrown over a wall upon musallis who were exiting the masjid in Zanin. I think it's called Masjid Salam. And one particular musalli was burnt, he had to go for treatment, etc. And that to me was the tipping of the iceberg, where I said, one can't stay quiet. And again, I heard statements calling us to practice restraint. Yes, we must do that, but there needs to be more needs to be done. We need to call it out. And that is why, alhamdulillah, yesterday I sought the permission of my political party. In fact, I was going to bring it up 2 weeks ago, but I was said, no, we have something else that's more urgent, because prior to that, I brought a member statement about the auctioning of houses, land in Cape Town, which I said was abhorrent. We got a 400,000 waiting list. So I brought a lot of issues, alhamdulillah, concerning the community. Then I brought up an issue surrounding the return of South Africans from KwaZulu Natal who were who were, sidetracked and taken to take part in the war in Russia, and we brought them back. So they said to me, Imran, you had a lot of statements. Let's give a pass. And I said, but no later than this week, because Ramadan is going to end. And alhamdulillah, I was given the opportunity by my political party, and I amplified it. I took it up. It was a pointed one. I held no shots. I needed South Africans, I needed the parliamentarians to know that this is where it's gone to. And fortunately for us, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development was in the House. So after members make their statements, and all different members make different statements from their constituencies, whether it's water issue, whatever issues, they raise it in Parliament. And if they are ministers in the House, they will then respond to it. And Alhamdulillah, Minister of Justice responded, and she acknowledged that my comment and my statement was well received, and that in our constitution guarantees religious freedom, and that we are in the 30 years of our constitution, that our Bill of Rights encourages us to be more accepting of our diversity. And she accepted, and she agreed that this was really she agreed to my statement. So that was really what I did. And there's so many other instances, and maybe I should put an important qualification. We are only allowed 90 seconds in the House to make your statement. So my statement had to be, unfortunately, quite rushed, but I had to bring it into 90 seconds. As a result, I had to cut down a lot of like the injury to the Musalli in Zanin. I couldn't talk about that. It would have taken 2 or 3 seconds. And in Parliament, they cut you off the moment your time is up. But those were the reasons why I did it. And as I said, it was the International Day by the United Nations for the combat of Islamophobia. And I felt really the country was quiet. There was absolutely nothing done. So, I'd like to think that this was my little way of commemorating this International Day of the combating Islamophobia.
Honorable, one of the points of our Bill of Rights also that we see, it also pushes and condone interfaith relations and interfaith discussions. So on this, looking at this issue, then that it's something which doesn't happen in a vacuum, then what would be the role of the other faiths in coming on board and having interfaith discussions on how to deal with such attacks? Because today it can be Islamophobia, then tomorrow it might be another different faith who might be on the other end of the stick. So how do we then, going forward, then prevent such issues to happen again and even become worse for other different faiths as well?
I think that is why it was important for me to make this statement and to
Mm,
cite the type of examples. I mean, whichever faith you may be, to hear the examples I gave you, for example, equating prostration of salah to a sexual posture. I mean, how low can you get? I think it will make any person of any faith repulsive, that how dare they speak of that, forget of Islam, of any religion. So I think this statement was intended to also then galvanize all faith communities and say, listen, guys, this is not acceptable. And hopefully, it must now catalyze a process where we start talking as multi-religious groups start talking and calling out such extremism. That's the first point to address. But interestingly enough, when I had made the statement, and there was lots of positive feedback from across the board, and there was one particular colleague of mine that was I was speaking to, and he's a member of my political party, of our political party, and he's a white MP, and he's telling me his name is Honorable Cameron Dugmore, and he told me, Honorable Subrati, maybe it would have been a better idea if a person of another faith had done your statement. I think that
mm,
answers your question. He tells me it may have been a better strategy, more effective to South Africans to get the message if my statement, in other words, the statement of Islamophobia, was not done by myself, but was done by a person of another faith. And I think that talks to what you are talking about, because we need to find solutions. I would like to think ultimately something like this should end up sitting in the CRL commission. In fact, the CRL, that's what they should be involved in, taking something like this and saying, listen, guys, why is there this religious intolerance? And they should then get other religious groupings together and say, listen, before this problem blows out of control, how can we arrest it? So I think, yes, to answer your question, there needs to be greater mobilization and conversation, possibly at two levels. And I'm thinking aloud. One is a purely at a civic government level, and the second a civic level at between religious bodies, and the second would be at a level of government, where government gets like the CRL Commission, or some entity, executive authority, as I appeal to them, get together and create a conversation of other religious groups, so we can then ensure that this doesn't recur or doesn't get worse.
mm. No, most definitely. Honorable Subrati, Jazakumullah khaira for your time, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing. And specifically because, our show, one of the points of the segments that we push is that of dawah, and having to understand and spread Islam in the correct way. But one is to remove the misconceptions, which is unfortunately what we see having to fuel most of the hate that we find. But Jazakumullah khaira for your work, and we really hope to be part of the movement whereby it will make a change, inshallah ta'ala.
Zakar, thank you so much once again, Maulana Yunus, for having me on your show.
I mean, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Right, we'll be taking a quick break, inshallah ta'ala. Then after the break, we have some beautiful advice from Mufti Muhammad Aku, inshallah ta'ala. So stay tuned.
With Ashraful A this summer.